Welcome back. Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating allegations of corruption in the SAPS will today meet to finalize its program on the resumption of oral hearings. Newzroom Afrika's Zoleka Qodashe joins us live in studio to chat more about the ad hoc committee. Very good morning to you, Zoleka. So are we expecting for the committee to resume its oral hearings anytime soon?
Good morning, Katleho, and good morning to the viewers. What we're expecting is that the meeting of the ad hoc committee that's investigating these allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in the criminal justice system will be paving a way forward or charting a way forward in terms of the list of witnesses that it's supposed to call and whether those consultations, you remember that the evidence leader, the chief evidence leader, as well as his team is expected to continue or expected to have concluded with those preparations for the witnesses that are expected to appear before the ad hoc committee. So we're expecting that when the committee meets, it will essentially ventilate some of those issues, the witnesses that are expected to appear. And also you remember that there were concerns around the testimony by the complainant really in the matter. That's the top cop in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, essentially also having to call him back to the committee to come and clarify some of the evidence that he's given and also to respond to the evidence that's been given against him. You'll remember that it was in November last year, I think, when Kat Matlala or Vusumuzi Kat Matlala also implicated Mkhwanazi in some level of corruption within the SAPS, saying that there was a meeting in KwaZulu-Natal between the former police minister, Bheki Cele, who facilitated a meeting between himself as well as Vusumuzi Kat Matlala in relation to the SAPS contract in the 360 million rand contract. So that's what we expect the ad hoc committee to essentially provide clarity on and when the proceedings will resume.
Yeah, and speaking about the witnesses and in finalizing that witness list, Paul O'Sullivan is certainly one that would be discussed today in that meeting, especially after Cedric Ngaminde had appeared and alleged that he received a message from Paul O'Sullivan threatening him.
Yes. So you remember that the ad hoc committee and the members of parliament didn't take kindly to those. And in fact, there were discussions about the ad hoc committee taking action itself against the forensic investigator. But there were also claims that some of the operations of IPID took place at Paul O'Sullivan's home. That was the allegation that was made by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi when he appeared before the ad hoc committee on the 7th and 8th of October last year. And so that is something that will also be taken into consideration by the ad hoc committee. Of course, I think there was an indication from Paul O'Sullivan that he is prepared to come before the ad hoc committee and give his side of the story, but also to clarify some of the cases. We expect that they will also be talking about a report in relation to some cases that may be against Paul O'Sullivan, and we expect that maybe that report would be from the National Prosecuting Authority. So there's a lot really that the ad hoc committee has to get through, and I think they've been granted their last extension, which may end at the end of February. So it's really a tight race now to complete the work of the ad hoc committee.
It certainly is a tight race, and I can imagine a tight race with limited resources, because we'll also remember a time where the EFF and at some point even Action SA had raised that the evidence leader together with their team are a very small team given the amount of investigations that need to be done around this matter.
And you remember that even when there were issues of statements that were before the committee, there were indications that, I mean, with Cedric Ngaminde, for example, he appeared the chief of staff of the police minister that's now been placed on leave of absence. He then said that he wasn't given enough time, he wasn't allowed to prep, which was contradictory to the previous messages that he had been given, because you remember that when there was that raid on his property, he had said that I am prepared to come to before the committee and face the full might of the law, you know. And so those are some of the constraints that have been laid bare really before the ad hoc committee. But when we spoke to the chairperson, that's Soviet Lekhanyani, around the resources and whether there was a need for forensic investigators as well to assist the committee, he did say that that was something that the committee would be looking at in relation to further capacitating the committee so that it fulfills its mandate.
So you spoke about this being a tight race, the committee having to finish its work by the end of February this year. I think what's most important are the outcomes, the impact, and really what South Africans are looking forward to is really seeing that there's action that's taken from many of these statements that we are hearing at the ad hoc committee.
So what we expect to happen after the committee has completed its work is that there will be a report that it then hands over to the Speaker of the National Assembly, after which it will be deliberated upon in the House. So that is the process that is likely to be followed after the committee has completed its work. But you'll remember that there's also the issue of the public submissions that have also been made in relation to the allegations that have been made really of the criminal infiltration in the criminal justice system. So all of that has to be done. But of course, we expect that there will also be other witnesses like Lieutenant General Sentumule, for example, to really speak about that process of you'll remember that the 31st of December 2025 was actually a year since the disbandment, the attempted disbandment of the political killings task team. And so that evidence also will be crucial given the fact that she is now the acting head of the crime detection after the suspension of Shadrack Sibia. So all of that will also assist the committee really in kind of painting a full picture as it also before it hands over its report to the National Assembly.
A very interesting time and a crucial time for both parallel systems that are running with the Madlanga Commission also taking place, especially with the minister or the suspended minister of police, Senzo Mkhonyosheli. His career is hanging in the balance of some of these reports.
That's correct. You know, and there have been questions about the future really of Police Minister Senzo Mkhonyosheli, who's been placed on leave of absence, right? And really the question around the legality of the decision, I think, is something that still remains in the air, because I think in terms of administrative law, his decision still stands because it has not been set aside by a court of law. Because he was fulfilling his functions as his executive functions or as an organ of state, right? He then by the virtue of the fact that he issued a directive exercising his powers, that decision still stands until it is set aside by a court of law. So in terms of the legality of that decision, that's something, the failure of the National Commissioner to give effect to that decision doesn't mean that the decision is still not valid.
Right.
It would need to be set aside by a court of law.
Sure. Zoleka Qodashe, thank you so much for joining us and just unpacking and refreshing our memories with regards to the ad hoc committee. We certainly do look forward to the resumption of the parliamentary ad hoc committee anytime soon.